Thank you, mate. Short and brief as ever. Nigel, would you like to join us, please? The reason I asked Nigel to join us now is that Malcolm's frightened he'd be barracking from the back. So I'll now hand you over to Malcolm Wood, who this week is the South West Counties organiser. Yes? Malcolm Wood.
Well, I didn't want to use my lectern, so I might as well have it back again. Oh dear, everybody's challenging me on jokes. I never tell jokes. I wouldn't dare tell any joke that anybody had heard before. But you can check with Nigel as to whether there's any truth in what I'm going to tell you now. Because apparently there was a little MEP in the European Parliament who made the outrageous statement that half the members of this assembly are corrupt cowards. And there was uproar. Absolute uproar. The speaker, or whatever you call him there, was going to dismiss him from the chamber, but in the nick of time he said, I take it back, I take it back. Half the members of this assembly are not corrupt cowards. Now, I think the first congratulation has to be to you, Jeff, and to your constituency chairman for putting up not merely a full slate of candidates, but a first-class slate of candidates. You're the first part of the South West to have a full house, and my congratulations again on that. Now, turning to the candidates, I've been involved in a few elections, so perhaps you wouldn't mind me sort of passing a few things on to you. I was just jotting down a couple of notes as to what I thought your duties were. The first duty you're fulfilling automatically, because the first duty of a UKIP candidate is to give somebody to vote for. Give everybody somebody they can vote for. And if we don't have a UKIP candidate, how on earth are the British public to make their feelings about the European Union known? So that's your first duty. The second duty is, in standing, to provide a threat to the political elite of this country. Without you and people like you, they will simply feel they can get away with anything. You can have any number of Euro-realist, Eurosceptic organisations out there, but the difference with UKIP is you've got teeth. You've got electoral teeth. You can actually steal the vote. And if there's one thing which a politician doesn't appreciate, it's somebody nicking his vote. You're a lovely part of the world here, aren't you? It's wall-to-wall Lib Dem. So nobody can turn around to you and say, but you're not going to form a government either. You can say, well, for the last few years, you've been electing people regularly who would never form a government. Anyhow, back to your duties. Your next duty, I suggest, is to educate. You're going to have public platforms on which to speak. You're going to be meeting lots of people. The state of ignorance out there about how the EU affects daily lives is monumental. It is appalling. I mean, when I've got time, I read the Open Europe stuff, and every day there's a stack of new stuff in which the EU affects daily lives. And do the British people know about it? Do they? Hell. So your duty is to use your position as PPCs, please, to educate the British public. Just get the message out of how utterly damaging this is. What else have we got? You're in a selling job. You're doing a selling job. And my best advice to you is to keep it as simple as you possibly can. Don't worry about memorizing 30-page manifestos. One of your candidates, and I won't be unfair by picking on individuals, otherwise I'll have to talk about all of you, but one of them, you struck exactly the right note. This basically is about democracy. You've got the Lib, Lab, Con, one party out there, effectively, and you've got you. And you are the only people who do not believe we should be ruled by Peter Mandelson. Oh, yeah. It comes down to that. And that the best people, no, I won't use that because it's one of Nigel's lines. Basically, we should be able to elect people who will govern us. And we should be able to do one other thing as well. We should be able to fire them. All right? That's the only way in which we'll keep them under control. So simplicity, the simpler your message, the better. One little hint. People have talked for years about the apathy party out there, haven't they? The apathy party, the apathetic British public. And sometimes it is very distressing how apathetic they are. I spoke to somebody whom I hoped I was going to get to speak at the Exeter rally on the 8th of March, make a note of it. And to my horror, I've known him for some years, he's a very prominent, a very good speaker, and very prominent, and he told me he'd given up. He couldn't actually take any more of the apathy. So it is difficult. But what I'm saying to you is it is not actually the apathy party at all. It's turned into the antipathy party. I was doing, when I was standing in Salisbury, I was wondering about how on earth to get through to the youngsters who were just going past as fast as they could, didn't want to talk. And I finally turned around and said, look, excuse my language, but this is what I said. If you vote for me, you'll really piss off the professional politicians. About turn. And they came back to talk to me because they don't like professional politicians. I would advise you not to be, in any sense, professional politicians. The more straightforward and honest you are, and the simpler the language you use, the better. You are armed with sawn-off shotguns. The other lot are armed with howitzers. Don't try to play it their way. If you try and engage them at 5 miles range from the front, you're not going to get very far. You've got to do things differently. So don't try to mimic the Lib Lab Con. Find your own ways of needling them, getting in behind them, and so on. We have, for instance, one little initiative which you may well be able to plug into as candidates. And my congratulations for everybody down here who so far has taken part. I'm talking about the parish polls. It's a very good example of a little off-the-wall activity that gets you in the newspapers. And if you, as PPCs, can be seen, you don't have to tell them you're UKIP. The opposition will tell them that. You can operate as CARP, and straight away all the other parties will say it's really UKIP, and say, well, we didn't say so, Squire, but thank you for mentioning it. So don't try and beat them, or don't try and join them, try beating them for a change. The big issue at the moment, and you must never lose sight of it, is the Reform Treaty. The level of disgraceful, corrupt, lying tactics of the other side on this matter is breathtaking. I was just reading before I left this morning what Giscard d'Estaing said. He said basically it's deliberately been dressed up so to avoid referendums. It's still all there. Well, you know all this. But does the British public know all this? This is the soft spot of your opponents at this moment in time. It's absolutely inexcusable what New Labour is up to. When will you be fighting the general election? Who knows? Mr. Brown certainly doesn't. But I suspect it's going so belly up for Brown at the moment that you may well have to hang around until May 2010. So be prepared to be patient, but between now and then, just keep pushing on. And thank you for standing. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm, who is this week the South West Counties Organiser, regional. Anyway, we now have a young gentleman. I can say that because I think he is younger than me, although I'm only about 23. He's the party leader of UK Independence Party. He's an MEP. He's the star of stage, screen and radio. Are you off to Hollywood soon? Ladies and gentlemen, Nigel Farage.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. It's absolutely